away tonight, huh? I'm Curly Hoff. I heard about how you were with old man Temple's son in Italy. The kid got it, huh? Too bad. I hope you didn't take offense the way we handled you downstairs. You caught Toots and me at a bad time. We were ready to bite anybody's head off, especially a certain blonde's. Look, 5 of us. We come down here for the deep sea fishing all the way from Milwaukee. More than a year we've been planning it to come down here and fish our brains out. So what happens? One guy brings a blonde, then after we all swore up and down no dames. But he's got to bring her, this guy. Well, if she isn't drunk and crying, she's got a hangover and arguing. One minute she gets sore at you and won't talk to you at all. The next she's making a play for you right in front of the guy. And he gets sore at us, mind you, not her. Everything's spoiled, including our dispositions. It's cost us all this dough, and for what? The world's worst time. Now I ask you, can you blame us for getting rude?
No, I don't blame you.
How about a little drink, pal?
Not right now, thanks.
Hotel Largo?
Come on, just to show there's no hard feelings.
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Storm signals are up.
What does that mean?
Hurricane's on its way.
See what I mean? Hurricanes yet.
Anthony.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. It's taken me a while to get my thoughts together, and even yet they are not together. Subsequent to the latest presidential election, in which Donald Trump soundly defeated Kamala Harris, winning the popular vote, which was unexpected, but in a way it feels a good thing because it lets us know ourselves as Americans. And a lot of booktubers have made videos talking about their response to the election. In the run-up to the election, I had stopped reading, and I have not read anything since. I think my last recent reads video was done on September 22nd. It's almost a month later than that. What is the date? Well, I don't know what the date is. Here we go. So it's the 15th of November. And I've not read anything. I had actually shown some books that I had been thinking of. My Apprenticeship by Gorky, some things by Chekhov. I'm afraid I'm probably going to bail on the Chekhov event going on BookTube right now. I will put a link to Quaint and Curious Volumes if you want to find out more about Chekhovember. I've had to reassess my reading goals. I've often been shaken from my best laid plans by such things as illness. And I realized that 8 years ago, I made a dreadful mistake. And that was, I was in San Francisco at the time when Donald Trump won the presidency the first time. And it came as a bit of a surprise to many of us. We were all hopeful that Hillary Clinton would be the victor, even though she was probably nobody's favorite candidate. But it did not happen that way. The rest is history. But up until that time, I had been reading The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons, the first book of Chinese literary criticism, I believe. And I got a good 176 pages into it. And at that point, I set the book aside and never returned to it. Now, I was planning to read Mary McCarthy on Florence and Venice, and I also set that book aside recently and cannot find it. So I have reordered it because I actually know where I mistakenly left it. But even so, it was not filling my needs at the time, I think. And so I may leave it for another day. I've talked about how I created this channel initially as a means to divert myself between that first presidential contest between Biden and Trump. Actually, I had wanted to tweet a poem about a young man that was murdered during a protest, but also during that election cycle, which became immediately politicized. But then, having established the channel, I started putting up videos of me reading poetry. And I stopped around the time of the January 6th insurrection and let it lay dormant until about 2 years ago. I decided to really put a focus on my own efforts to become a reader, a better reader. I don't have a history of being a good reader, and I wanted to strengthen that. As I say, I have been shaken from different reading projects by illness, and of course, 8 years ago by the results of the election. That was a case of I just completely forgot about the book. And that first victory of Trump, I think many of us did not know how to process it, how to deal with it. And I feel that everybody is a lot better prepared for it now. And in the community tab recently, I put up something that I had written in response to an article that I had read on Counterpunch. And I think I would like to read that or some of that to you. As I say, I've found a lot of good things. Immediately, apparently, after the election, Rachel Maddow had a video. I mean, she was there monitoring the election returns or something, as TV people do, and gave a nice talk about how, well, the results are in. Now that does not end anything. It only marks a new beginning. Of course, we well, let me see if I can find this piece. It is from Counterpunch. Can you see that? Trump, a pre-mortem by Matt. Whoops. Pill time for the cat. Not this one, but I gave him his pill a little bit early. Now, let me get back to this. Matthew Stevenson. I don't know too much about the writer, but actually just before the election, I decided to support Counterpunch. I think supporting journalism is important these days. And so with my increased access, I've been poking around the articles. Not that I would say everything that I have found there is of interest, but I thought that his piece was, he made a very strong prediction about the election, which was wrong. I always appreciate people who make their thoughts well known and leave them up. Do not rewrite their history after they have been proven wrong. So let me read his piece, Trump to a Pre-Mortem. Without Democrats left in the Senate, House of Representatives, White House, or on the Supreme Court, the Trumpublicans can now turn to the business for which they are best suited, that of devouring their own. This was published on November 8, and some of it has already become outdated. Even before January 20, 2025, that great day when all the January 6 rioters will stream out of their prison cells to attend yet another march on the Capitol, MAGAistas can begin their internal knife fight to decide who will be the heir to the great Trump throne. Think of some gilded toilet that you might find in a suite in Atlantic City. Who might be those pretenders to this kingdom, or who might be the victims of the purges? Let's start with Trump himself. In forming his new government, he had one role, which was to be the pitchman, frontman, greeter, game show host of the glorious revolution whose election would furnish his followers, Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon, Don Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr., Elon Musk, Marjorie Taylor Greene, etc., with keys to the empire. After that, and once they are in power, Trump is of no use to anyone. Sorry, Don, he will be told, that's not how things work. You can keep your X account and we'll give you a jet, Air Force One, so you can tool around to a few rallies and check in with your pals in Moscow, Budapest, and Pyongyang. I thought it was Pyongyang. But we'll handle the rest. I don't think he's interested in traveling to Moscow, Budapest, or North Korea, particularly unless he's got, well, I won't go into that. Plotters and schemers such as Musk, Kennedy Jr., or Jeff Bezos don't hang around with a psychotic and delirious old man in diapers because it's fun or because they're all in the same Literature of the Constitution book club. Very true, that. They are there because they smell blood in the water and the chance to take over the U.S. government as if it were yet another subsidiary on their family office org chart, organizational chart. If Trump thought it was hell being charged with 91 felony indictments or having to perp walk his way across lower Manhattan to state Supreme Court, wait until he's locked away in his White House padded cell with limited access to Newsmax, while his many Chamberlains sharpen their knives and take control of the Federal Reserve without so much as a whisper in Don's direction. I would say Trump could console himself in such isolation by reading Hamlet or Macbeth, but literature has never brought Soundtrack Don much solace. Sorry for taking my time over this. Another person who will find piano wire tightening around his neck will be errand boy J.D. Vance, who will be dissuaded from believing all those Fox News stories about how he's now the heir to MAGA fortune. Vance's job in the 2024 election was to reassure suburban women that King Donald wasn't the sexual predator that they suspected he might well be. I think that paragraph is a little bit flawed. I think white suburban women in particular don't particularly care about Donald Trump's sexual predations. Vance's other election task was to secure a seat in the presidential McDonald's booth for Don Jr., Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel, that is the name I would highlight, and the 2025 projectors who otherwise feared that they could be cut out of Trump's estate because the likes of Stephen Miller, Melania, and Mike Pompeo were lurking in the shadows with some blank codicils they bought at Staples. That's going off a little bit. I don't need that sort of levity or flippancy. Meanwhile, Don Jr. and Ivanka each think of themselves as the rightful successors to Daddy's levers of power. Don Jr. believes he is closest to the MAGA base, while Ivanka knows she shares Daddy's little secret. I don't care particularly for that. Beyond Trump's immediate and treacherous family, there's a plane load of public officials: Ted Cruz, Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, and the dog-shooting Kristi Noem are a few who come to mind, all of whom think that Trumplandia is a decaying empire despite the feel-good moment of the 2024 election that is theirs for the taking. The professional polls will conclude that their succession planning need only involve coming out on top in the Iowa caucuses or the New Hampshire primary in 2028, something they can handle. I'm not even sure how much store I would set by that. Let Musk be the one to cut Social Security benefits for oldsters, or let Kennedy Jr. explain to all those MAGA moms why their children now have polio, while the likes of Haley or Cruz can be on their shiny white horses in New Hampshire kissing babies and explaining the right way to eliminate inflation or seal the border. According to the 2024 campaign storyboards, on day one of his new administration, King Donald will suspend the Constitution, lock up his political opponents, assume dictatorial powers, and march 10 million illegal immigrants into the Texas sunset. The new Colossus will deal with inflation, shout down the encroaching high waters of climate change, bring peace to Ukraine and Gaza with one phone call, and finally, to secure his legacy in the pantheon of Western leaders, drive transgenders from the temples of girls' locker rooms. Then he will dispatch his new Attorney General, presumably Eileen Cannon, and here he's already said he wants Matt Gaetz, to various courthouses, hearing cases involving her patron, where she will inform the commoners that her liege lord is only subject to the laws of God. In theory, Trump will then be freed from the shackles of bailiff Jack Smith and excused from the levee due to the unsinking witch Jean Carroll. All of the details here don't interest me so much. At last, Squire Don will be free to enjoy the fruits of his kingdom, all those PAC contributors which he can use to pay off meddlesome women. Except that by day two, Trump will be a bird locked away in a gilded cage, only of use to his villainous and plotting chamberlains, with his portrait on their shiny new coins of the realm. Against his palace plotters, Trump will only have one weapon from his daytime career that he can wield, that of firing his disloyal footmen whenever his suspicions are aroused, no doubt daily for the paranoid president. Probably rightfully paranoid. I guess he could also have them beheaded as per the immunity opinions of his vassals on the Supreme Court. Either way, Trump Part 2 will be one endless internal bloodbath. Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest? Are the words of Henry II just before his meddlesome rival Thomas Becket was run through with swords. I know Trump is not a reader of history. He needed an aide to explain Pearl Harbor to him, but Becket is remembered with more affection than is the vengeful Henry II. And, by the way, Macbeth is a cautionary tale of what happens when you use deceit and lies to seize power. So, Oh yeah, let me take it to what I wrote when I posted this. I posted this on BookTube, the community tab, and I also posted it on Facebook. I don't agree with this writer on particulars, but there is a lot of wisdom here on how the incoming administration will play out. We have already seen it, and students of history know it. Unfortunately, the amusement to come from watching so many actors vying to survive and prevail in the evolving new power dynamic will be more than offset by disasters of unexpected magnitude and variety, not to mention the slaughter or sacrifice of innocents. Still, understanding it to be their hubris which undergirds the morally corrupt voting majority, including non-voters as the case may be, who have ushered in a new era, will allow for the detachment of seeing surprising events in their inevitability. Gloating may be improper, but succumbing to despair even wronger. It will be best to maintain a good-humored equilibrium in spite of the cries of the bewildered or lamentations of the beset. So we know a couple of things from the past. One is that in spite of the fears of many persons on the left, Donald Trump will not be able to implement autocratic powers immediately, and in fact, it would be more likely for full implementation of autocratic powers to come with some successor. We do not know who his successor might be. I like to think Baron Trump, but we really have no idea. We know that it's going to be a lot messier than any of these actors anticipate or intend. But it took me some thought to craft that little paragraph, which I only crafted as a means of putting my own thoughts together. And one thing that I have determined is that I was wrong in laying aside this book 8 years before. And as much as possible, I think that it is one's best program to keep one's lives and personal interests intact in spite of all of the mess that is going to be occurring, much of it originating from Washington, but certainly not all. You know, the first time, I've shown this a couple times, the first time 8 years ago I wrote under the headline, Toward Inner Emigration, with Republican ascendancy, humane values become especially imperiled. For the poet, it calls for a recusal, much as I foretold in my 2011 book of that name, or withdrawal from the heightened political scene. Freedom of expression becomes moot in the autocratic state, and with the back of the American system largely broken, a new route must be charted, a task to be left to men and women of action. I think I would not write that today. For many people, an internal emigration may well be the advised course. We know that the malevolent powers which put themselves under the title of republicanism or Republicans when they have an enemy in their sights, it is their aim to destroy that person's life forever, insofar as they can do it. Now, I am a very small booktuber. Nobody is particularly interested in me. But as an older person, if they want to destroy the rest of my life forever, it is proportionally less than that of another person, possibly. And so I have even more reason for not subscribing to that inner emigration, which I wrote about in that little chapbook. And now I do not, as a rule, write poetry. I have written a few pieces here and there during the past year, and I have not turned the faucet off on the muse, on the poetical inspiration as it may come out through that spigot. But that is not where I am at. One thing, however, that I am clear about now is that I should keep this channel up and running. I watched a very nice video by Hannah at Hannah's Books in which she talked about the community, and a lot of people have actually suggested that maintaining what communities we have and even becoming more involved in community is important. It's important not in the sense that we would have thought 8 years ago that you have to have a lot of politically motivated communities. No, it is other than that. We need to have communities with other people, even, as in my case, just keeping other literary interests alive. And so that is why I intend to keep my channel up and running, though I expect it to change. Pat at Book Chat with Pat just has a video up. In fact, any BookTuber that I've mentioned, I will put a link in the description box, in which she talks about how her reading has sort of slumped a little bit in recent times, and she did not address any of the specific causes. I was one of the first people to comment on her video, and there was another video, another comment by one of these trolls. Now, I don't get very many trolls on my channel because my channel is very small. Words to the effect, "The voters have spoken, you better just live with it now," or something, which she rightfully deleted within a couple minutes of it being put there. Melinda at A Web of Stories handled it very nicely. She said, you can hit the unsubscribe button, you can click away, no need to announce that you're unsubscribing, no need to announce that you're leaving. Don't let the door hit you on your way out, so to speak. And I agree with that. In her video, Pat did not mention anything at all about the political situation in our country. But these trolls covet any opportunity they have to put their little crimp into somebody else's day. But it seems to me that now these sort of MAGA trolls, MAGA being the acronym, I guess, for Make America Great Again, the rubric under which all of these basketful of deplorables collect themselves, or what did Biden call them? Garbage. now I lost my train of thought because I'm going in another direction. I don't think that there is particularly any great purpose in describing these people as garbage or even a basketful of deplorables. The words certainly are suitable. Somebody posted a thing, oh, the only thing we know, once again, as always, misrepresenting the liberal position. Liberals think that 20% of the people are pure evil, blah, blah, blah. No, not at all. But one thing that I know that I am going to make clear is that anybody who voted for Donald Trump in this recent election is not a good person. There is no way that good person and having voted for Donald Trump can be synonymous. They are mutually exclusive, and I will not let go of that. That's not to say that a person is incapable of changing and becoming a better person. So where I was going with that, I think, was we are seeing a lot less of this kind of pro-Trump gloating after the election win than previously, even though he did better in the voting tally than previously. And I think the reason for that is because everybody knows a little bit better what a Trump presidency is going to be like, and that it is going to be, what is the word when you drop a pebble into a pond and then the ripples go out? Centrifugally in an ever widening circle or sphere. I don't. Everybody knows what a Trump presidency is going to be like. You remember at the end of the last one, practically weekly, you would read some kind of article by somebody who said, I voted for Trump. I wanted Trump to get rid of all of these bad immigrant people. I didn't think they would take my husband. Boo-hoo-hoo. And this was, one of them was even a sheriff. Oh, I'm a sheriff. I voted for Trump. I didn't think they were going to take deputy, whatever. Oh, well, we already know about that. And you did not vote for Trump if you were a decent human being. What was the phrase? Have you no decency? No, if you voted for Trump, you have no decency. And that is the thing that these folks want you to keep silent about. There is no need to engage in the satisfaction of gloating, of saying, oh, they're garbage, oh, they're whatever, deplorable. No, but there is no reason to give them the affirmation of decency that they so dearly crave. They're not decent by any stretch of the imagination. I'm glad that I happen to have seen a little bit of the movie Key Largo recently, because I think it gives me almost a perfect metaphor for treating of the new situation in which we find ourselves in the U.S. What was it? You caught Toots and me at a bad time. We were ready to bite anybody's head off. 5 of us, we come down here for the deep sea fishing all the way from Milwaukee. Everything's spoiled, including our dispositions. It's cost us all this dough, and for what? The world's worst time. Now I ask you, can you blame us for getting rude? Well, indeed, storm signals are up And I think everything that that character spoke in the monologue, which I posted at the top of this video, it applies to the New Republicans. All of the foibles which are to come between who is biting whom, who is getting pushed out, to what degree, the article I read talked about bloodletting, to what degree it is real and to what degree it is metaphorical. I don't think that it matters. But I think the one key thing that we have to take away is that we have to keep our disposition even. There is no reason to get bent out of shape, even though the primary Republican objective has been to get you bent out of shape. It was during the time of George W. Bush, the son, after the World Trade Towers came down, it was so blatantly obvious that he wanted everybody to get mad and upset and outraged. And that is exactly the Republican Party's plan of operation. And I wrote, I tried to do what I could to stop the invasion of Iraq. And when that I knew was not going to happen, I pulled out a book, The Condemnation. And I think one of the final poems is actually more appropriate to now than this little chapbook or anything that I read from that. So forget the inner emigration. And I haven't read this one, but I remember a little bit of it. The title is Pilloried Man. So this is from 2003. Yeah. What the hell? I've shown this before. Des Ouvres Americains. Pilloried Man. Pilloried man beneath the mocking stars, what is your fate? As heir to many riches, a great inheritance you've withered sparse. 'Twill be the living's task to turn the farce, to pull man's destiny out from the ditches. Pilloried man beneath the mocking stars, how is it yet for all your schemes and wars, you fail to beat lust's itch as it bewitches? A great inheritance you've withered sparse. How is it, though some soul it tans or tars, no law you will not break to pad your niches, pilloried man beneath the mocking stars? What is your fate? In race for golden bars, how much obtain before the whole thing pitches? A great inheritance you've withered sparse. How is it, even as you break your arse, yet you persist, although it end with switches? Pilloried man beneath the mocking stars, a great inheritance you've withered sparse. So, I think I've read one other poem from this, Bury This Generation in the Ground, which began the book. I think everything still applies. I think the difference now between times past, every election in recent times has been the most important election of our lifetime, and that has been indeed true. But this probably is the last most important election of our time. I am not saying that a Trump autocracy is automatically going to be ushered in. He is going to try to implement that. He promised that after the swearing in, he was going to go to the hanging of Cheney, not Dick Cheney, the daughter, I guess it is. He talks big. He also said he was going to lock up Hillary Clinton. It didn't happen. Everybody knows that Trump talks big. And that's about all he's good for. In one of my poems, I think from the book about the COVID stuff, I may well have called him the bloviator. But the one thing that I think is pretty clear is that after this turn, especially with the popular support it has been given, changes must come, which cannot be reversed. It is possible that the time of Trump will be succeeded by a benevolent autocracy of some sort, a benevolent dictatorship even. Who knows? We can't predict the future. But after the recent Republican presidents, there have always been Democrat presidents to come in and clean up the mess that they made, at least fiscally speaking. And each time it's become successively more difficult. After Reagan and Bush the first, or Bush pair, you had Clinton. And Clinton came in and he took that huge deficit and made a huge surplus out of it. He unfortunately pushed the Democratic Party to the right. Then we had, who was the next one? Was it Bush? Bush Jr.? W, as he was affectionately called. And he really messed things up. After that, Barack Obama came in. And Barack Obama did a lot of good works, really. He was limited, of course. He couldn't even get a Supreme Court judge appointed because the Republican Party refused to adhere to the spirit of the law. So instead, we got the illegitimate Judge Gorsuch in office. But he did a lot of good works. He put us on a sounder balance fiscally. Got a good treaty with Iran to get them to scale back their nuclear ambitions. He, of course, was followed by Trump, the first white president, I think he was called. And, of course, Trump blew up the economy, as you would expect, and as you may expect again. And he was followed by Biden, who got the economy on better tracks again. This is all common knowledge, and yet people voted for Trump again. So we shall see. But I believe that the mess to come of a Trump presidency, given that each successive Republican president's mess has gotten worse, it will be too big for any subsequent Democratic president to clean up, even if there should be such a president. The fault with people who voted for Trump is very simple. Trump is a big liar, and this only stems from the Republican Party's habit of defamation. So Trump, to use the phrase that's everywhere now, Trump got rid of all the guardrails against defamation and used that as a primary form of one-upmanship against his rivals. Something no society which harbored a shred of decency would allow for, and the American public allowed for it. So, unfortunately, defamation lasts longer than just against one's immediate opponent in a domestic political contest. You had, what was the guy's name? John Kerry, defiled as some kind of coward or something. The problem is that when you slander another person, you are compelled to begin believing it. Now, in foreign wars, a certain amount of this happens as well. Saddam Hussein was treated as the epitome of Satan, let us say. And a certain amount of this seems to occur in international politics. The problem is that if you have Iraq as the great Satan, you have Iran as the great Satan, you have China as the great Satan, and so forth, you begin to believe your own assessments. And that puts you on a poor footing for actual encounter. I've said this before, traditional cultures have this idea of keeping your cool. Cool pose, I think, if you talk about the African American tradition. There is a book of that title. In Thailand, they say, Mai Pen Rai. And our politicians have jettisoned the ideal of keeping your cool as a proper aim for politicians or common folk alike, just as they have jettisoned the ideal of truth-telling. And the repercussions of having a figurehead such as Donald Trump, so prevalent in the news at the very pinnacle of American society, can only have repercussions. This whole method of getting ahead by any means necessary or possible, it can only percolate and infiltrate all the rest of society. And that will impact everybody's life. And in that situation, it will be very hard not to have a spoiled disposition. And that is why. That is one thing that we must do. There will be, I referred to the slaughter of innocents. Again, how much that's metaphorical, how much actual, who can predict? But we are going to see a lot of innocents harmed through actions of this imminent administration. So the persons deported who should not be, the administration has, they had all those children in cages at the border before. They have said that they want to have incarceration camps. Usually what begins as an incarceration camp morphs into something worse than that. And the persons who institute such mechanisms lose control of them. And that is likely to happen in so many arenas forthcoming. And so we are going to be witness to a lot of horrendous injustices. And even in spite of that, one must keep one's disposition. As I say, for an old person such as myself, it may be easier to be open. I have lived my entire life. When I was a little bit younger, there was a movement that came up called MGTOW, MGTOW. You can look it up. Men going their own way, and I could have easily fallen into that. Well, I've decided to call my new movement PGTOW, PGTOW, persons going their own way, because I've always gone my own way. And I think that the best reaction to this hostile political climate in which we find ourselves is to continue going one's own way. Of course, to some degree, that is not viable. So if you are gay, or if you are trans, etc., you may well think twice about your public persona. But those of us who can should try to keep living our lives as we want them to be. Now, as far as BookTube goes, I have felt myself growing apart from BookTube. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how much I need to be reporting on everything that I read on a weekly basis, that kind of thing. But I have enjoyed it, and I think that this community is important. It's the kind of thing that is going to be very easy for the would-be autocrats to erase just by removing people's accounts, as YouTube has done with some political commentators. But I don't think there is, at this time, a great fear of that kind of censorship clamping down on us BookTube content creators. And I think it is a good means of us reminding ourselves of our own humanity. As I've said, I firmly believe in the Republic of Letters. That was the phrase. I love that phrase. And the would-be autocrats such as Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, have no qualms about erasing culture. No qualms at all. And So I am intending to keep my loyalty to the English language and English literature active in some measure through this channel. I think that is where I should leave it. I hope to get back to this. I read 28 pages, I think. I hope to get back to it. I've decided to shape my reading more to my immediate and perhaps more narrow goals than I have been doing previously because of the BookTube connection. I said I was not going to buy any new books, but I recently bought this, which I heard about on the BookTube channel of Drunzo a long time ago and have thought about it. Got a beautiful copy for $9, I think it was. So basically the cover price plus $4 shipping. And I'm not sure, as I say, how this channel is going to go. But I thought that I would weigh in. I've produced another one of these overlong videos. We are all involved in a balancing act. Brian at Bookish has talked about creating a second channel devoted specifically to politics. And if he does that, I would encourage you to go there also. If such a channel comes about, I will add the link in my description box here. Future videos to come as my whimsy takes me. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.